How was your dinner? I'd like to actually have us begin. Let me just welcome you back to the 2018 reunion. How many of you are graduates of the class of 2018? Come on. There's many of you here, okay. So, how many of you are graduates of the class of 1968? It's really great that you have more energy than the graduates of the class of 2018. Not that it's a competition. So our students, our faculty, and our staff. Okay, I got to do something here just for a second. I know the dessert's really great, but I want you to listen up because I'm gonna call out some people that I want you to help me thank. Okay? Say, our students, our faculty, and our staff are really happy to have you here. And I want to invite the students that are here, and I know that there was a table full of them, maybe they're in the dessert line, just to give a shout out. Shout out, come on. Current students. This is the next generation of Antiochians, and they are doing amazing things in the world already. I also want to invite the faculty that are here, and I've seen a couple of folks. I know Michael Casselli's here. Anyone else? I want to thank the faculty of this college for doing the yeoman's work and the yeowomen's work to bring a college back from a place of indefinite space to a place that is actually changing the world. So thank you, Michael. Anybody else here? I'd like to thank, I saw Maureen Lynch, our new board chair. Maureen, you're over, where are you? Thank you, Maureen. Is Sharon Merriman here? Thank you, Sharon, for your service. Are there other trustees here? Oh, Karen Mulhauser, thank you so much. Karen is a double threat. She's both an Alumni Board member, the president of the board, and also an Antioch trustee. Thank you, Karen. I also want to thank the people who made the food and who served the food from Scratch Catering. Thank you. They're still working hard, but we can't put these events on without them. And I want to thank the amazing staff from the college, especially Tracy Ugamoto, James Lippincott, Christine Reedy, Matt Green, and Alana Guth. And last night, if you were in the Herndon Gallery, you were able to actually experience the amazing curatorial skills of Jennifer Wanker, who's also here tonight. Are there any other staff members that are here that I haven't called out? Wendy, where are you? Hi, Wendy. Okay, wait. First, let me say something about Wendy. You know, do you know what it means to punch your weight? If Wendy Ernst was a weightlifter, she'd be like lifting 100,000 pounds. Thank you, Wendy. And Eric Miller. Thank you, Eric. Eric is a weightlifter, yeah. I don't want to know why you're so close to the kitchen, but that's okay. Who else do we have on staff? So is Stephen here? Who? Diane Jordan. Thank you, Diane, for being here. You are a stalwart and an alumna. We appreciate, and you have the sun in your face. Thank you. Who? Okay, but then I'm accused. Yeah. Where are they? Library staff, raise your hands. So, yeah, I know. I hear you, Wendy. I know who Suzanne is. I just want to say about the library that the library is the other student union here. It is an amazing place. And even though Anna's not in the library anymore, she defected. She did something called retirement. It's still an amazing place. We thank you. David Atkins, where are you? Back in the corner. Thank you. Thank you for making this mic work. I hate to think what would happen if you weren't there. And finally, I know this is actually going longer than I'm supposed to go, but I wanted to thank, since I'm going to be run over by Wendy Ernst if I don't, Suzanne Hashem. Whose fingerprints are all over this event, including getting the amazing speaker Michael Higginbotham today, and yeah. So, and then there's the Alumni Board. Many colleges have alumni boards, but no college has a board that works as hard, that cares as much, that calls the president or the head of advancement up as much as the Alumni Board of Antioch College. If Suzanne's fingerprints are all over this event, the Alumni Board's fingerprints are all over us. And we thank you because we know that what you do is for passion and love, and we couldn't do what we do without you. So I want to thank the Alumni Board, and especially those who have been organizing this fantastic reunion. Karen Forright and Rick Daly, put up your hands. Give it up for these folks. So, before I invite Karen Mulhauser up, I have a special part of the program, and I ask you to listen up. I'm going to read. So, I think everyone will want to hear this. Every year, the Volunteer Work Project contributes tens of thousands of dollars of labor to the college they love and carries out needed tasks that otherwise would never, ever get done. This past week, nearly 70 alumni volunteers and friends and spouses, 87. Well, let me just check that. I'll be right back. Yes, I checked with the White House's staff, and you're right. Nearly 87 alumni volunteers and friends and spouses of alumni turned out. They came from near and far from Yellow Springs to New Jersey, Florida, Texas, California, Washington, and even, I don't know, what do you mean even Alaska? And Alaska. They worked at the Antioch farm, harvesting a year's worth of garlic for the Antioch kitchens. You know who they are? Just go shake hands. They repainted the porch of the historic Pennell House. They built for Horace Mann's niece in the 1860s, Rebecca Pennell, a full professor of the college, unusual for women at that time. The volunteers completed the rebuilding of the south porch of South Hall, a task involving at least a dozen people over 6 months. The amphitheater got some preventive maintenance, and the flower gardens were weeded and replanted and mulched. Volunteers assisted in the library and at the Antioch Review and in advancement. All of this in just 4 days. Thank you. The volunteer work project happens 4 times a year. There's a job for everyone. They work hard and smart and have a lot of fun. The college provides housing and meals, and volunteers pay for their own transportation. Consider joining for a future work week or a part of a work week. Look for a reunion badge with a volunteer ribbon. Once you participate, you will probably become a regular member of the class of VWP. In recognition of their unique contribution to the present and future of the college, please join me and the Alumni Board in presenting this tribute to the Volunteer Work Project. The plaque.
Some of you know that we are known as the Karen Caucus. That's spelled Kaukus. Karen Forright and Karen Mulhauser. And and we are honored to have been asked to participate with Tom in recognizing the Volunteer Work Project. There are so many ways that we as alums can give back and be engaged with Antioch College. And the Volunteer Work Project is probably the one that's the most fun. And so I encourage any of you who want to learn more to find people involved in it and find out more about it. And Karen has something to say. And this is one of the rare opportunities at reunion for future alums and former students to be together. So I always enjoy coming back to reunion. So Karen?
And I'm the short one here, so I guess I have to stand tiptoe. So look for someone with a green ribbon that says volunteer if you'd like to learn more. There's also the newsletter that's put together 3 times a year, and if you would like to see what's happened in the past, that Evelyn puts together, Evelyn Lemers. Let's hear it up for Evelyn. And so if you would like a copy, see Joan Stockton, who is waving her hand in the air, but not saying anything right now.
So for our last act of the Karen Caucus, stay tuned.
So let me translate. This plaque will be installed on main building. Thank you.
David Vincent. Since the volunteer work project knew that they were going to get some kind of recognition, but they didn't exactly know what, they wrote a volunteer project work song, and the chorus to that is on your table. Now there's 17 more verses, but we need to hear our Rebecca Rice Award winner tonight, so you will only sing the chorus.
We're singing it?
With me is Penny Storm, and we would like to correct misinformation that was just given. Our meals for the work project are donated by our cooks, and they cook every meal, they finance it, and they should be given a great round of applause. Now, the reason Penny Storm is here is that she can sing. But we have this
It's on your
on the table. The inspiration is sometimes we think we're in summer camp because the weather is so good. And having a small repertoire of songs, Onward Christian Soldiers kind of came to me because I went to Y Camp for a lot of years. So this is kind of the chorus.
Onward, Antiochians, marching off to work, knowing that our projects are just too good to shirk.
Please come to the next work project and you can learn the other 16 verses.
We'll have all 16 verses up on the website in no time. So thank you, Volunteer Work Project. We're going to need another volunteer work project to cover this, carry this plaque over to the building. It's pretty heavy. So I want to welcome Karen Mulhauser, President of the Alumni Association, and again, yes. Okay. A change in the program. We're very flexible. I had mentioned Michael Casselli earlier, faculty member in art here at Antioch, and he's going to come up and talk about the Alumni Award.
Check 1, 2, check, check. Hear me? Great. Okay, 1 second. Of course, my glasses just broke. Yep. I have reading glasses, yeah. I think I'm okay. We'll see. Okay. Okay, hello and welcome to tonight's Keynote Dinner. My name is Michael Casselli, graduated class of 1987, assistant professor of sculpture and installation here at the college, and a second-term member of the Alumni Board. Tonight we are assembled to recognize Victoria Hochberg, class of 1964, and recipient of the 2018 Rebecca Rice Award. This award recognizes alumni of Antioch College who, by their actions, achievements, and leadership, have distinguished themselves in their alma mater, and the award is named for the first female trustee, longtime faculty member, and alumna of Antioch College, Rebecca Rice. When I was asked to introduce Victoria, I found myself on a bit of unfamiliar ground. I haven't done a lot of public speaking, and when I have, it's generally been in very informal settings where I can really kind of go off the cuff. This request seemed to be a bit more formal and required me to dig in and do the research necessary to honor the request. Victoria's work behind the scenes in film and television industry tells a tale that it will seem familiar to all of us who call ourselves Antiochians. I will touch upon her achievements since graduation, but will leave the detail up to her. Victoria graduated from the college with a degree in history and soon began her career as a performer, working with the San Francisco Mime Troupe and then securing a Fulbright to continue studying mime in Paris. From here, she moved into her first career in the film industry as an editor. In her bio, she is quoted as saying that she saw editing as a way in which to capture the significant gesture of a story, something that echoed her work and training as a mime. Later, she moved to PBS, PBS's drama unit, continuing her work as an editor on a number of film anthologies. The unit also filmed plays at La Mama Experimental Theater in New York City, a venue I'm very familiar with. And it occurred to me that I'd run into these unexpected connections a lot with Antiochians, things I didn't expect to find, but find commonality. And it's really, it happens again and again. Her familiarity with performance also provided her the opportunity to work with Joe Papp's New York Shakespeare Festival in Central Park, and she was able to convince PBS to film King Lear with James Earl Jones from midnight to sunrise. Victoria moved into directing and producing documentaries for ABC as well as PBS, securing her first Emmy nomination for directing. In the ensuing years, Victoria would go up to win 2 Emmys for Outstanding Directing and 2 Director Guild of America Awards for Outstanding Directorial Achievement in Dramatic Shows. She would also secure an American Film Institute Independent Filmmakers Grant for her experimental documentary Metroliner, a tone poem about the high-speed train that runs between New York City and Washington, D.C. This film premiered at the Museum of Modern Art and is in the permanent collection of the Motion Picture Academy. This past January, Metroliner was preserved by the Women's Film Presentation Fund of New York Women in Film and Television and screened together with a film by Peggy Awesh, another Antiochian from the class of 1978. Victoria's film and television achievements include work as an editor, director, screenwriter, and music video director. Victoria has taught writing and directing at Art Center College of Design and is a full professor in the graduate film program. Victoria has served on the Directors Council and the National Board of the Directors Guild of America. She created the Directors Guild of America's Global Cinema Program, which has screened over 100 foreign films for DGA members. Victoria was also one of the founding members of the Original Six, a group of 6 women who fought for employment equality for women within the Directors Guild of America. As we see every minute, every day, discrimination is pervasive within our society, and people must recognize that it is everyone's responsibility to defend the rights and the rights of access to all underrepresented, underserved, and marginalized people in this country and around the world. Victoria's contribution to the profession, as well as her ongoing contribution to this fight, makes this recognition of her achievements all that much more powerful, and I'm honored to have been able to introduce Victoria this evening. Her bio ends with this quote: "I ascribe all of this success to my Antioch education and the opportunities it gave me to reach for whatever I was told I couldn't do, especially what I was told I couldn't do." Without further ado, I present Victoria Hochberg.
That was beautiful. Is that really me? My God. Okay. What a great, raucous, alive group this is. Can you hear me? No? Uh-oh. Okay, hang on, guys, hang on. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? I have a big, loud voice, so I will yell. But I was trying to be a little gentler, so okay. All right, good evening. I'm honored to be standing here. I want to thank the members, more thanks, of the Alumni Association who worked so unsparingly on this event, especially Charlotte Hallam, Karen Mulhauser, Karen Forright, and Michael Casselli. Thank you. And thank you, Rebecca Rice. I hope I have lived up to your legacy. I guess I have to tell you why I deserve this award. So I looked at the resumes of some of the former recipients. One of them had, quote, define the function of small ribonuclear proteins in pre-messenger RNA, splicing together the resulting segments. Okay, I knew I was in trouble. The only word I understood was splicing, as this is associated with film editing. So I decided to just tell the truth about me and how this school. Okay, now is Scott Sanders here? Because he handed me a copy of my senior thesis this afternoon, and I started to cry. And I said, I hope I don't cry, but I'm about to right now because. So I decided to just tell the truth about me and how this school, Antioch College, in Yellow Springs, Ohio, completely changed my life and gave me a future I could never have dreamed of. Oh, I forgot to bring my water up. Sorry. Thank you for your patience. Am I loud enough? No, I don't need a tissue. I'll just use my sleeve. I was born in the Bronx to a working class family, the third of 3 children, all girls. Now, any English major will tell you that the third daughter is usually singled out. Think of Cordelia or Cinderella. But in my case, I was not the fairest or the smartest. I was just the luckiest because my parents said by the time I came along, they were exhausted and basically let me do whatever I wanted. My sisters and I were funneled into the New York City college system, which my father called the Harvard of the proletariat. That may have been true in the 30s and 40s, but by the time I got there, the only exciting thing for me was walking past Hamilton Grange every day, the home of Alexander Hamilton, still standing, not the man, the home, but in terrible disrepair. I loved imagining what it might have been like 200 years earlier. Maybe this was why I became a history major. After 2 years, I realized I was going to spend my entire college experience riding on the subway and living at home. By then, both my sisters had gotten their degrees and their big weddings. So when I announced I would not return to City College, my father, a practical man, said he would either pay for an out-of-town school or a wedding. I think you know which one I chose. The plane took off from LaGuardia in a dense fog. When it descended, I looked down and saw what appeared to be a patchwork quilt of tans, greens, and browns. It was the earth, flat, with no buildings. There were brown and white creatures on the side of the runway. Cows. This was going to be interesting. My Antioch co-ops were all terrific. I was an apprentice at a summer stock company in upstate New York. My best job was throwing snow from the rafters during a production of 7 Keys to Baldpate, a fast-paced farce. But by mistake, I had bought ivory soap flakes, and the actors slid all through the play. I taught ceramics at the Cambridge School of Weston in Massachusetts, although I had no idea how to throw a pot. I worked for Paul Libin at the Martinique Theater in New York, where he chased me around my desk while James Joyce's A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man played downstairs. At school, I read Chaucer and Sir Gawain in The Green Knight, plus the wonders of American and European history. As a transfer student, I had several work quarters to make up. Why not go to California? 4 of us took off by car. In Las Vegas, we got into an unfortunate pillow fight, resulting in a broken lamp and a large foot gash that required stitches. I arrived in San Francisco on crutches. Someone told me there was a theater company called the San Francisco Mime Troupe, although it was called the Mime Troupe, but I always call it the Mime Troupe. Ronnie Davis, the troupe's creator, was doing Commedia dell'arte for free in city parks. The play was The Mandrake Group, a comedy by Niccolo Machiavelli. I got hired for the part of Sostrata, a spirited, indignant Italian woman. Commedia is one of the oldest forms of theater with several archetypes: the soldier, the pedant, the young lovers, the cuckold pantalone, and Arlecchino, the trickster servant. I felt at home. Here were my lovers of theater and history combined. During a performance in front of Peter and Paul Cathedral in North Beach, the huge church bells began to toll directly behind me. I stopped talking and did a slow turn. Sostrata did not like to be interrupted. Ronnie Davis had encouraged us to interact with anything that happened during the performance. So I, Sostrata, walked to the front of our makeshift stage, leaned forward toward the audience and said, "I think I'm going to have an attack." Slapped my right hand over my heart, spun around and dropped to the ground. The audience roared. Sostrata was duking it out with the church. Ronnie, usually cantankerous, was ecstatic. It was the first time I saw that I could make people laugh. Our mime troupe salary was $5 a performance, so I needed a job. Walking along the street, I saw a sign, Studio 16. "Do you need a receptionist?" I asked the owner. "No," he said. "We're a film company, but we do need someone to do idiot splicing." I said I wasn't an idiot, but I would be happy to splice, whatever that was. And for the next several months, I did. This was real 16mm film, and handling it was a revelation. It was physical, it was sensual. You literally had to tape the film pieces together. Plus, there was all that editing equipment, the viewers, the synchronizers, the moviolas, the rewinds. I felt like I had joined a medieval guild where people learned a craft and worked at it. I returned to Antioch for my final school quarter, full of hope and confidence. Aside from co-ops, the most important thing I learned at Antioch was how to write. All classes required papers. And finally, the last big one, the senior thesis. I suppose Estrada stayed with me because I chose as my topic Machiavellian Florentine humanism, 100 pages. I was overwhelmed. I began with a prologue. Someone once whispered in my ear, ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. You can tell I was in a fevered state. What I meant was that ontogeny, the development of a single embryo throughout its various stages, recapitulates phylogeny, the development of its entire species. I was trying to say that Florence itself went through all the stages of human society, from lonely outpost to village, trade center, city, and finally city-state, the Renaissance embodiment of all that civilization had accomplished up to then. My professor, a recent PhD and graduate of a Catholic university, wrote on the title page, "You have a gift for political narrative." He gave me an A-. His compliment must have emboldened me because I asked, "Why the minus?" His response is one I have not forgotten. He said, "I don't give girls A's." You gasp, which means things have changed. What did I do? I kind of went blank. Then felt humiliation and shame, partly because I had been presumptuous, partly because I was being told what I already knew from every clue the culture at that time gave you. Girls are not as good as boys, their work not as distinguished or valuable. This was the world we inhabited. I told myself it didn't matter. What did matter was that because of the work-study opportunities given to me at Antioch College, by the time I graduated, my path in life was set. I had learned to write, I had worked in theater, I had increased my knowledge and love of history and literature, and I had been given entree into the greatest art form of the 20th century, motion pictures. After graduation, I went back to New York. The Donnell branch of the New York Public Library has a film research center. I asked the librarian if there were any film companies in the city. He told me to go to 107 West 43rd Street, the legendary address of Robert Drew Associates, the Maysles brothers, and Leacock Pennybaker. Now, these names are to the American documentaries what Matisse, Picasso, and Chagall are to modern art, because they invented in America what we call cinema verite, or cinema of truth, a form of documentary that starts with a single person, group, or institution that the filmmaker follows and films over a long period of time. Think the Mezos' Grey Gardens or Salesmen. There are no scripts, there's no narration or voiceover. The subjects slowly reveal themselves, and the filmmakers then spend months, sometimes years, shaping hundreds of hours of footage. In cinema verite documentaries, the editing room is where you found the story. This kind of editing was the prelude to narrative writing, but I didn't know that yet. My first job was syncing Up Dailies, the shot footage that arrives in the cutting room. 16 millimeter travels through the gate at 24 frames per second. But there's only one frame that perfectly syncs up picture and track. When someone says pop or big, the lips come together on only that one frame. When you're 21 and feeling anxious about yourself in relation to everything in the world, it's helpful to know that there is one bit of order in the chaos. Things do have an anchor, even if only for 1/24th of a second. I became an editor. At WNET, the PBS station in New York, I was assigned to the drama unit. My boss would select a play to be shot on location and then hire a theater director to direct it. The problem was that theater directors are not filmmakers and know nothing about editing. The theater is one big wide shot. So my boss sent me on location to work with the directors to tell them what shots I needed in the cutting room. When the film wrapped, those directors would go back to the theater, leaving me to put the film together myself. I'd finally realized I was co-directing. My boss agreed. PBS had just become a signatory to the Directors Guild of America, which meant I had to join. But the Guild's rule was only one director to a film. Co-directing is not allowed. They let me join as a director. This was momentous. By this time in the early 70s, the women's movement had become something to reckon with. A group of 100 women, me included, staged a sit-in at the office of the Ladies' Home Journal. We held the editor, John Mack Carter, a Southerner, hostage for 11 hours. And demanded that one whole issue be devoted to women's rights. I remember the look on his face, half awe, half smile. We must have reminded him of his own lost idealism. In the magazine's next issue, he gave us a full women's liberation supplement. It was an important lesson. If you see injustice, join with others, take action, and don't back down, change is possible. At work, I was hired to direct several primetime documentaries and was even nominated for an Emmy for one of them, but I was not making my own films. One late afternoon, I took a train from New York to Washington. It had rained that day, and dark clouds hung over the city. As the train turned south in New Jersey, I looked back at Manhattan. The setting sun had appeared beneath the clouds, and every window in the city's skyline was ablaze with reflected light. Something in me woke up. For the next 3 hours, I stood next to the train's engineer as he told me some of the history of the railroad and this particular route. I was a history major. I was ready to make this film. I got an independent filmmakers grant from the American Film Institute. My intention was to make a dynamic film about a train, which is an object that moves and a symbol of this country. As the train picks up speed, it begins to travel through time and U.S. history. The film was accepted to the Telluride Film Festival, and a producer for Roger Corman, king of low-budget movies, saw it. He invited me to Los Angeles as an editor for their company. I wanted to direct dramatic films. Perhaps this would help. I said yes. If LA is a strange place, the film industry is even stranger. For the past century, we have watched gallant heroes living out the fantasies of those incredible old guys, power broker gatekeepers who made Hollywood what it came to be. The result? Hollywood was decades behind the East Coast in terms of responding to the women's movement. Episodic TV, the entry point for most directors, is essentially a factory system. 3 shows are in process at the same time. While one director preps, 6 days, another director shoots, 8 days, and a third is editing, 4 days. The pressure is enormous. The writer is king. But the risk of hiring new directors is minimal because the machinery is already set and most crews and actors know all they need to know about the show, all they need to know about that show. That makes TV directors more like substitute teachers with all of the responsibility and none of the authority. Feature films are the opposite. The director is king. Everyone is there to execute the director's vision. Prep takes months, shooting takes weeks, and editing can go on forever. But no matter what part of the industry you want to enter, one thing is constant. Very few women are hired to direct. A year went by, then 2 more. I was asked to make a film about the Eagles on their Hotel California tour, shooting hours of concerts, behind-the-scenes brawls, and wild interviews. We can talk about that later. I edited trailers, I directed plays, I started writing scripts, to no avail. At a Women in Film meeting, a group of women from the Directors Guild were sitting together. Most had already directed dramatic shorts. We were all ready to move into directing dramatic television. Are you working? No. Are you working? No. These were all accomplished women, but we needed to be sure that what we each experienced wasn't a personal fluke. In other words, we needed hard data. Working as a team, we smuggled DGA TV memos from the Guild, did months of research at the Academy Library, created questionnaires to be sent to other women Guild members, then spent a year analyzing all of this. What we found was astonishing. Of all the television and feature films made between 1948 and 1979, the number of women directors was 0.5%. Think of it like this. If there are 100 cookies on a plate, white males got to eat 99.5 of them. Women directors had to share the remaining 1/2 of one cookie. We presented our findings to the leaders of the Guild and formed an official women's committee. We announced our statistics at a meeting attended by every Hollywood studio executive and television producers. They were shocked, and vowed to change things. A year went by. Nothing happened. They claimed there were no women directors. We created a directory with the names of over 50 women ready to do the job. Nothing happened. Committees were set up to interview women. We showed our reels and resumes. Nothing happened. Finally, the Guild's National Executive Secretary, the great Michael Franklin, recommended to the National Board that the Guild file a class action lawsuit against a few targeted studios. This was a stunning departure. A Hollywood union had never sued based on sex discrimination. We agreed to include the Guild's minority members to broaden our class. 2 more years while our law firm learned all they could about how the film business works. Because what is being measured is not whether you can haul a fire hose 50 feet or how you do on a particular test. What is being measured is that old shell game of who is qualified to direct. Directing is not math. It's not science. It's a potpourri of traits, each one showing up in different degrees in different people. A writer-director may not be a brilliant visual stylist, but understands story. An actor-director may not know anything about lenses, but knows how to get great performances. Also, film is an art form that needs a well-disciplined army to bring it to life. And the person given this responsibility has to be both poet and division commander. Half Leonardo, half George Patton. Were there ever any women who could do this? As a matter of fact, yes. Did you know that the very first person to direct a narrative film was Alice Guy Blaché? In 1896, when the greatest hit was a movie of a train rushing headlong into a station and scaring the hell out of the audience, Alice Guy Blaché made the first film with a story. She experimented with synchronized sound 20 years before Al Jolson got on his knee to sing Mammy in blackface. She wrote and directed 350 feature-length narrative films at her own studio in New Jersey. Lois Weber, by 1922, was considered one of the best directors in America, making films about drug addiction, abortion, birth control, poverty, and prostitution, while her male colleagues were all excited about chariot races, cowboy shootouts, and a drama glorifying the Ku Klux Klan. By the end of the 1920s, the film business was corporate. Smaller companies, many headed by women, were squeezed out. Worse, all work by women was erased from film histories. By the time I arrived in Hollywood, I don't give girls A's had become, we don't hire women directors. This is what I and my 5 colleagues were up against. Our lawsuit was filed against 2 major studios, Warner Brothers and Columbia. But something interesting had begun to happen. Producers of TV shows, afraid they might be sued next, began to hire women to direct. They were often women who were already working on those particular shows, editors, script supervisors, actresses. But we learned that a legal big stick produces results. In 1985, 6 years after we began our crusade, the judge, a Reagan appointee, announced her findings. The Directors Guild, she said, could not represent the class because the Guild's own members discriminate when hiring. She dismissed the case. The strange thing is, it didn't matter. The wheels of justice had begun to turn. By 1995, our 0.5% soared to 16%. This was our one victory for humanity. For the next several years, I was able to direct many TV shows. It was hard and sometimes good craftsman work. I have also been given the chance to teach. I'm a professor of writing and directing at a fine school in Los Angeles. As Jane Austen almost said, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a single idea carried forward by the next generation will not be in want of a satisfying ending. What she meant was, unless people who benefit from advances brought about by the activism of others pick up the banner and continue the fight, nothing will progress. And I'm sorry to tell you that 23 years after we hit 16%, that number hasn't moved. Worse, of the top 250 feature films last year, women directed only 11%. And despairingly, the work of our activist team was erased. The Guild, embarrassed by the ruling, chose to bury it. Younger women Guild members had no idea what we had done. Activism had ended. There are many reasons for this, and I don't want to blame my more apathetic film sisters, because the truth is, sexism runs very, very deep. Misogyny is alive and well. Its venom kills slowly, and the toxin has many delivery systems. It is dispiriting that the American film industry, the primary expression of our nation's deepest self, has denied half our population the right to that expression. When the stories of a culture glorify men and dismiss the value of women, the culture is split and out of balance. That binary split means that one part dominates, the other is suppressed. Whoever dominates gets to create myths that all then must believe. When Adam is created first and Eve comes second, this distinction carries meaning. Worse, Eve comes from Adam's body. This myth, though it goes against every observable birth in the history of humankind and steals the one thing women can do but men can't, this myth is respected. Myths are codified in art, but women were not allowed that enterprise. Even during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, women were forbidden to write unless they were merely translating the works of men. Art and dominance have a peculiar relationship. It's interesting to note that the most violent, suppressive empires in history often seek art and wish to own and control it. The Romans looted art from the Greeks. The Nazis took art from all of Europe. What did these conquerors see in art that they longed for? 2 millennia ago, a Roman ship carrying stolen Greek art sank off the Italian coast. A bronze statue of a young athlete was on that boat. It stayed buried in the sea for 2,000 years, and when finally retrieved, was covered in barnacles, suffered from bronze rot an inch thick, and was missing the bottom of both its legs. Yet, the wealthiest man in history wanted to put his name on it. The wealthiest man in the wealthiest country with the mightiest military in history wanted to put his name on it, the Getty Bronze. How can that be? The Italian government said no. Now in a lawsuit, it's the great Roman Imperium versus the mighty American Empire battling over a hunk of metal. Why? I think it has to do with the very thing the conquerors, the dominators, don't have, but in the darkness of their souls know they need, which is the ability to live with mystery, with possible failure, with the terrifying truth that there might not be answers, might not be absolute rules. These are the truths of art. Art brings light to a shuttered mind and moral riches to an impoverished culture. It lets us all know that the universe is bigger than we thought, contradictory, unexplained, and that the larger and in that larger universe, we have no control. I would love to be around in 2 millennia when perhaps a work of women's art is retrieved from its long burial. Will it be honored the same way, coveted and valued? Will that revolution take 2,000 more years? Or has the recent resurgence of activism, hearing stories from the half that has been marginalized and silenced, soon reach critical mass that leads to permanent change? Will our stories, our imaginations, our view of things, our creative expressions become the bedrock of a new balanced culture? I think yes. There is no profit to any culture that suppresses and degrades the majority of its citizens. I think just within the history of our own country, we have learned that. But old ideas die hard. The professor who told me he didn't give girls A's was reading from an ancient playbook. It is what he was taught, just as I was taught to feel shame when hearing that soul-killing opinion of me. I have changed, and I imagine he has as well. In any case, I forgive him. Because 54 years later, I get to stand up here and receive an award from my beloved Antioch College in Yellow Springs, Ohio. And for that, I am forever grateful. Thank you.
At this time, we'd like to invite anyone who has a question to raise your hand and we'll be running around with mics for you to ask your question.
Hello,
Hello.
my name is Mari. I am a current rising fourth year.
Rising fourth year?
Yes, it is.
Sounds like a kite.
I'm not sure. We are rising above. Yes. I was wondering if your house was available for co-op in California.
This girl belongs in the film business. As a matter of fact, yes.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
A
Thank you.
short co-op.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Also, I had one more question, if that's okay. So perhaps this is a bit cliche, and it's cliche to say it's cliche, but
There are no cliches.
Thank
There are
you.
no cliches because they're all the truth. So just say it.
Thank you. So my friends and I, we are about to embark on our fourth year of Antioch. It all has gone so fast, and it's really bizarre almost. I guess I'm curious about any advice, reflections, memories you have about your final year of Antioch, and if you'd be interested in sharing.
My final year of Antioch?
Yes.
Well, as I think I said, I was loco en la cabeza. You know, I was a little crazy. The advice I would give to anybody, actually, and this I've come to learn. I was sitting at some mall place in LA, and these two kids who clearly were from, we were at, what's the name of that Mexican restaurant? Chipotle. And they were at the same table, and I knew they were in the film business, and I happened to say, you know, I'm in the film business, and they could see I was a little older. So they said, what advice do you have? And I thought for a long time, and I said, I think the best advice I have is to be kind. Because the film business and a lot of businesses, a lot of groups together can get unpleasant and nasty because ego rises up and people's fears that they're not being appreciated. The greatest thing you can do is to be kind to the people you work with, appreciate them, and let them know that you appreciate them. Then you can tell them that they did that wrong. But if it's just as a director, you learn working with actors. You don't come on and say, oh my God, that line reading was awful. You say, this is so great, you totally get it, you understand, but could you just try a little approach on that other line? And you just be kind. That is the advice I would give. Anybody else?
Hello. Peace. Over here. My name is Troupe, class of 2020. My brother was an actor in the early 70s, and I learned a lot of things from him about, like, some of the things you were talking about, he would tell me about. And so nowadays, when I see things that are going on with, like, the Harvey Weinstein and things of that sort, I'm like, in myself, I'm saying, oh, it's about time. It's always been there. And I wonder, like, some questions I have for you is, like, what do you think is sparking the change that we're seeing now? Is it that more women like yourself are getting into positions where you're able to make a change? And then next, what do you hope to see come out of this? Because I was on the fence about maybe some real justice coming out of it until I started seeing other names and other people that were actually in powerful positions actually being tagged and pulled off. You know, because I just didn't want a show for the cameras. You know what I'm saying? So, like, what do you expect to see come out of it? And just from the inside, what do you think sparked some change that's, like, long overdue?
Well, there are a lot of facets to this issue. It is not just harassment. The problem is employment. The basis is women allow, that's a bad word, but they don't fight back against certain kinds of harassment because their jobs depend on it. And when you have a whole career, when you're 23, and if you go up against Harvey, you won't work again. So there's a terrible power imbalance there. So the first thing that has to change is that women have to be hired. 50%
of all women in the film, and producers, directors, writers, have to be women. And there are statistics that when that happens, the whole set shifts, the films actually do better. Employment is the bottom line of all of this. But the industry is set up in such a way that when a woman pitches a story, the people who are in development are generally males, or if they're females, they know that the level above them will not accept stories about women. That's starting to change, but for years it was called a chick flick, and nobody would see it, which is a complete lie. Once that happens, if the film is made, 70% of the critics are male, so they're not going to write wonderful reviews of these films, and so if they don't do well, there are many things that lead to this. Will this last, is what you asked? What I want to see come out of it is that there be more employment parity, so that women will be doing the hiring. Women won't be chasing women, maybe some, around the couch, the casting couch. But once this cracks open, men will have been put on notice that they can't behave like that anymore, and a lot of it is changing. Will it last? The film business is, there's people forget. And in 3 or 4 years, it can just all go back to where it was. One thing that I heard was that corporations will stop hiring women because all those guys are terrified that their women are going to nail them for their behavior. That's not good. I don't know. I have faith, because as soon as you see this 17 and 18 and 19-year-old women on that Women's March, that was, for me, astonishing. I thought this had all gone away. But last January, when I went on that march and saw the thousands, by the way, LA had the biggest march in the country, I thought, well, maybe there's hope. And I do think there's hope, actually. I do. I think it'll change. I hope it lasts. That's the trick. Okay? That's it. One more question? Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. I'll ask it later, Karen.
Ask me personally.
I will.
Okay.
Let's give Victoria an amazing round of applause. This was amazing. And I'm very sorry, but some people are needing to leave for the next sessions. There are other programs now, and Victoria and I were on campus at the same time, but we didn't know each other then. But we obviously got the same spark at Antioch because we've been living somewhat parallel lives with regard to gender equity. And so I look forward to getting to know her better. So thank you all for coming. And some people have already left to go to the cabaret chorus and folk dancing. And Victoria will stay around for a little while for those people who had questions that they wanted to address before I interrupted her. So see you tomorrow and enjoy the evening. Thank you all. Oh, James has something. Oh, wait a minute. Victoria. I didn't know it was here. Can you come on up? It's not over yet. So, this is a special plaque and award that was made by a local artist, and we are so proud to be able to give it to you tonight, Victoria. And if you want to see the special message on it and the special award, you come up and talk to Victoria afterwards. Thank you so much, everyone.